Hey everyone, welcome back. Well, in the last video, you saw me tearing apart my blacksmith vise. The blacksmith vise is a vise that is designed specifically for blacksmithing so that you can put hot metal in it and beat the hell out of it, right? So, the way that it's pretty much designed, there's three main things that make it a blacksmithing specific vise. One, and the main one being it's freaking big. It's big, it's massive, right? And it opens up nice and large so you can put big stuff in there. Number two, and it's forged. It's forged steel. It's not machined, it's not cast or anything like that. If you had it made out of cast, it would break really quickly, because although cast is nice and hard, it's too brittle for getting beat to hell on. That's why cast anvils suck. So it's all steel. It's massive, right? The second thing that makes it a blacksmith specific vise is that the screws are made such that it's quick. It's got fast action. It's not a double lead, I don't think. I haven't looked at it that much, but with one turn of the handle, I mean, it closes like so that way you can get a hot piece of metal into the vise, close it real quick, and start, striking it while the iron's hot, right? So that's number two. Number three is the fact, and this is the biggest one, is that it has a leg. It's a leg vise. It's called a leg vise for a reason. It has a leg that transfers the energy from the rear jaw down through that leg and into the ground. There's many different ways that people mount a blacksmithing vise. This is the first time I've ever owned one, first time I've ever mounted one, restored one, all that good jazz, right? So the way that I decided to mount mine was using a piece of maple, a maple round. It was about 6 inches in diameter, and it was about a foot long. And so I dug a hole underneath where I wanted to mount the vise. I dug a hole, and then I tamped down the ground like super hard, right where I was going to mount the round. So I mounted the round, and right under the centered it on where I was going to mount the vise itself to the bench, and then centered it on the round, drilled a 1.5 inch, or sorry, 1 1/4, 1.5, I can't remember, but drilled a hole in there to accept, I drilled it just shy of the length of the tang, because the leg comes down, and then there's like, it flares out in a little flange and then comes back in, and then you got about an inch, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, something like that sticking out. And I drilled it just shy of that length, and that way it over time it will eventually sit. That flange will sit on. Right now, the bottom of that leg sits on the bottom of that hole, and then over time the flange will sit on it as I beat it into the ground, quite literally. And what that does is, like I said, it transfers the energy from the back, from that rear jaw down. Instead of the vise taking all that brunt, you're actually transferring that weight into all that energy into the ground, and that's what you want, so you don't break your vise. So without further ado, the last time you saw it, it was in pieces. I wire wheeled the whole thing, cleaned it off, and I didn't paint it, obviously. It just needs to be left as, pure steel, and then I mounted it. Now when I mounted it, I packed the threads, got everything perfectly clean and everything. Packed the threads, external and internal threads, full of marine grease. I live in Washington, and it's always humid here to one degree or another. Even on dry days, you'll come out and there's dew all over everything in the morning. But packed everything full of grease. I packed the pivot screw full of grease. That hole's full of grease. Pack the races full of grease that everything pivots on when you're screwing everything together. And everything else I sprayed with something I've never tried before. This kind of goes on like spray paint, really. The liquid rinse dry lubricant. It says it's supposed to dry to like a white powder, but it's not a white powder yet. Still got to put a couple more coats on it, but stayed away from the greasy areas. And yeah, I heated it up before I did it too, so that it would, I don't know, help it stick maybe, dry out some of the moisture before I tried applying it. That way it kind of, I don't know, kind of has, I don't know, kind of like spray paint. You're not supposed to paint below a certain, above a certain humidity level and below a certain temperature, which is usually around 50 degrees. It snowed its ass off here last night, and now it's like all melting throughout the day, so I'm watching like these big plumes of snow just fall off the trees onto the ground. It's crazy. But, and lucky enough, my work, we got out early today because it was still snowing its ass off when we were at work, and they let us go early today. So that's how I'm out here doing all this, right? And to top it off, they gave us tomorrow off. So tomorrow I got some exciting stuff going on. But back to the vise. I'll get to the rest of it in a little bit. So those three things, right? It's a massive forged metal vise. It has a quick acting screw, and it transfers the energy down into the ground via the leg. I know you want to see it, huh? It's a sexy beast. I gotta warn you, beware. Bam! Look at that bitch. It is nice. It is sexy, isn't it? Yes. This thing is so massive. I'll bring it down for a closer view. Oh yeah. Look at this thing. It's so massive. Mark, if you're watching, I think this will hold anything you want. And then some. It ain't that little cheap Irwin vise in Montana. Yeah, note to self, don't ever buy an Irwin vise. Those little Irwin bench vices, they suck balls. But, see, that's the spring that I was talking about right here. As you, this is one of those races that I was talking about also. But, and the other race is back here, so that when you pivot, all those things turn, and that helps it operate. But let's see, it opens up all the way until it pops out, but I'm not going to pop it all the way out. This is about as far as I'm going to go. But watch this. This is one turn. Right? 2, 3, 4. You see how fast it closes. But when it's open, that spring allows the jaw to come straight out instead of you having to manually do it. It's got some pretty good tension on it too, so anyway. So, as I had mentioned, there's my maple round. It goes about a foot into the ground, and there's that little flange I was talking about. Hard maple. That thing isn't this so beefy? So I got grease up in the pivot joint. I got grease where the friction areas are, and everything else got that. And I also have grease up here in the race right here, and this race, and obviously the threads are just jam-packed full of marine grease. One other thing that I want to mention is I had to be able to clear this to be able to drive the to be able to drill the hole first off, but be able to drive that screw in. These two bolts here are bolted just to the bench. This bolt right here actually goes through. It's about a 7 or 8 inch long lag screw that goes through here and into the leg of the bench. So extra sturdy there. And so that's the leg vise. One last peek at it. Sexy, huh? I'm so glad I got that thing mounted, and as you can see, I broke in my my nice new bench in style, the way it should be. The next thing I'm going to do tomorrow, since we got the day off, tomorrow I'm going to be doing some blacksmithing. I'm going to tonight be working on some finishing touches for the. I'm building basically the rails for the tray units that I haven't built yet, so that the main body of the tool chest will have some trays a couple inches deep that will slide around. You can take them in and out, slide them back and forth, kind of get tools out, whatever, what have you. While you're working, you could still got room in the bottom for like your big joiner planes, all the way down to your smoothing planes and whatnot. But I have 3 drawers, 2 smaller ones and 1 long one, down below the main box, which is super nice. And I don't have any drawer pulls for them. And I was like, well, I could just go. I was actually in the hardware store today getting some brass screws for the tool chest to keep it, you know, straight slot, old school style. And while I was there, I was like, well, I could just get some drawer pulls right here. They're not that expensive. And I was like, no, I got tomorrow off. I'm going to blacksmith me some handles, so some drawer pulls. So that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. If I have any time and any coal left, I'm going to finish off because I still haven't even finished my my raker yet. See if I can turn you guys over. So this is working out beautifully, by the way. This Royal Western Chief is amazing. It's an awesome blower. Still have some coal left here. I got another 50 pounds of it in the house. And this is where I left off with my my coal management stoker, shoveler, whatever. So I still have to forge this out. And it's taking forever because it's tool steel. You know, I don't know if I wouldn't call it tool steel. I would call it like a steel for tools. Meaning it's made out of started off as, I believe, a tip for a jackhammer. So you can imagine, and that's like my very first thing that I've ever blacksmithed. So I'm trying to pound on this thing. It's like one of the hardest materials you could, you know, try to forge. So everything else should be a piece of cake from here, right? But that's where I sit with it, and I still got to finish this up. And I'm also tonight, actually, I'm going to be getting a little bit of surface rust off of the anvil, because even though I cleaned it up, I cleaned it all off like 3 or 4 days ago. It's already getting surface rust because it's, again, I'm in Washington and it rains all the time, so it's humid. And just that little bit of dew sitting on it, you know, throughout the night and into the day, it just gets that surface rust in no time flat. So I'm going to take this and surface it, and then I'm going to try, instead of the dry lubricant, I'm going to try some Ballistol. I use the stuff on my tools inside a lot, but I've never used it outside. I'm sure it'll work just fine. But I'm going to use it. I'm going to coat the anvil in it, and then maybe just leave it out here so I can like give it a quick wipe down at the end of every session. That way, you know, because once it gets hot, it's obviously going to burn away, so I got to reapply it. And then I'll kind of, you know, know which rust prevention method works better, whether it's going to be that or this. I've used WD-40 on it before, and it worked okay, but, well, everybody knows WD-40. I think that's about all I have for this video. I want to take you guys inside for another video in a minute, kind of go over where I'm at with the tool chest and what my plans are for that. And yeah, that's about that. I don't know if I'm going to film forging the drawer pulls on. I just started blacksmithing, so I need, instead of the I don't want to call it pressure, but the extra effort going into even just clicking the button and filming myself, moving the camera or the computer and stuff around, I'd rather just probably enjoy the forge time, you know, without the cameras and stuff like that. But that's where I sit, and soon to follow this will be the the video on the status on the carpenter's tool chest. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And a shout out to my grandson, my youngest grandson. He turns 1 today. Happy birthday, little buddy. Landon Maggart, 1 year old. And I got an almost 3-year-old grandson, and I have a granddaughter on the way. Can't believe it. I feel like life's passing me by. I gotta get out of the Navy fast. But August of next year, that's the date. August 1st of next year, that's the day I'm trying to get. I should be going on terminal leave from the Navy, and I'll be on to the next chapter of my life. Can't wait. So, if you're digging what I'm doing, give me a thumbs up. And if you think I suck, give me a thumbs down. Tell me why. Yeah, I guess that's about it. Subscribe if you want. Friends and family, I love you. Everyone else, stay tuned. I'll see you in the next clip.